Hello. There it is. Hi. Yes, it is Monday morning. It is 9:30 a.m. on Monday, November 26, 2018, and we are still making indie games. When last we left off, I streamed yesterday morning. I was working on dialogue boxes. Let me make sure. Let me see where you are for audio. This is all for you. Let me just turn off the audio for me. Sorry, I'm gonna yawn. I woke up late today. So, yeah, I obviously played through the game, formatting the different dialogue boxes to work. I also created another dialogue box, which you just saw, which is in the top left. So now you have like a pretty large one on the top left, the bottom right, and a tiny ass one on the top right. And you'll kind of cycle through them at times. That's a good example. I think I was using this one as an example. Where are we? Because here she's like spazzing out. So let's see all of the various dialogue boxes for the most part. So yeah, I went through, I added those. I did a bit of I had to do a bit of cleanup anytime that there was like two lines, it breaks things up here. Or anytime there's a line break, I broke it into being like one speech bubble and then another speech bubble. Just things like that. And I did that for the basically the first hour experience, the all the solo levels. So that was yesterday. That took a bit. And I'm probably gonna continue with that work off stream later because I don't want to like play through the game on stream. That'd be weird. So we gotta come up with something else to do today, which is not something I've done yet. There's a lot of stuff to do. And I don't know where to start. There's things I want to do that are super unimportant. Okay, what are the important things? Oh god, the important things are scary. You know, I suspect I'm going to do a short stream and then get breakfast and then stream again, maybe. Like, I might do 2 short streams today. I gotta take off at 2. So, we could start doing a couple of little polish tasks I've been wanting to do for the characters. Do a character art stream, that might be fun. Oh, you know what I need to do? Alright, so I want it to be the first time you play through the game. Like, I want the concept of a new game versus a continue. And the first time you play through the game, I want like a 30-second cinematic, which is largely going to be the animation you see right now. And I want a shorter one for any time you exit to the main menu. So right now, whether you start a game or not, or you're continuing a game, either way you hit play and you see this cinematic, which is fine. I might use this for the main, like for everything. That hitch only exists on in Unreal, by the way. It doesn't happen in a package build. It's the one time something works in a package build. I'm pretty happy about it. So yeah. Also could do look dev on the UI, but no, let's do this. Let's add the concept of there's a new game versus a continue, and then let's hang some stuff off that. The next stream will be later today. I don't know when the next stream will be. It depends on how long this stream goes. Streaming right now. You're already worried about the next one, man? Hey, Weez, what's up, man? I guess I could leave this. I never eat on stream. So, like, when I get hungry, I stop streaming. Could eat on stream, but I feel like that's weird, even though everybody else does it. It's a social thing. Hey, Tom, what's up, man? Yeah, this is a dreary ass Monday. We've entered the gray season, Tom. How far are we through the winter? 3 more months of this. Feels weird to eat on stream, but nobody cares. It's fine. I can't explain it. There's something about eating with people. Like, this is, you know, it's not just Game of Thrones. It's like society, right? Breaking bread with somebody, hanging out with somebody and eating with them. It's a thing. But, like, it's different when you can't see the other person. Because now I'm just eating alone while a bunch of people watch me on the internet, and that's fucking weird. Hey, Peter, what's up, man? I turn off the webcam. I suppose that's fine. Or we just won't. This is not important. I don't feel like this is a problem we need to solve. Okay, I'm gonna do something which is, I also at some point want to add the idea that you have multiple save slots, I think. Should I do that today? Because that's going to be a rat hole. You know, in Fidel Dungeon Rescue, they got away with a simple delete your save button. So I'm going to roll with that. It's not going to work in the long term for me, but it'll work for now. I liked that. I like that because it's easy. I'll need this later, so let's just put this. And let's take this. So the way these buttons are set up is a bit weird because I need them to be I need to create a custom widget that would work for a controller and everything else. In fact, I'm hard coding all of this. This button, if you hit the down on the keyboard, mouse, whatever, it immediately goes to this options button. The options button needs to now go to delete your save button. This needs to go to options button. This now needs to go to delete your save button. Bam. Now it's in the system. Are you interested in music? Do you play any instruments? I'm wondering, since Kind is your brainchild and it's very musical. I don't play, I mean I did. Like I played the saxophone when I was a kid. I liked it. I love music. I love going to musicals. I don't know if I would say I'm hesitant to say I'm interested because I know people, like, I know actual musicians and I don't want to be like quizzed. But yeah, I mean, I love music. I'm human. I feel like everybody does. What's the point behind limiting the number of slave slots? Well, the reason you do that, Tom Farrow, is because otherwise you have to write a system for people naming their saves and a dynamically growing scroll list. None of these things are hard, but just does tack on a couple days. And then you gotta debug it. You gotta figure out where it fits in your UI. So right now, having just one save that I know, and I can just literally call that file and delete it, that's a lot easier. It's not like a decision I'm doing because it's the better solution. It's a decision. It's something I'm doing because it gets me what I need for now. Because people are actually playing the game. Well, not people, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to find an event to delete your save button. I set the text to be delete save file. There. Hey Mitsu. Okay. I'm not going to delete my save file. I'm just going to trust that that works. Right. So the next thing will be about I need a bool that is, do I want to call it save file exists or game started? Save file. Let's go save file exists. That's kind of what it is. So if save file exists, do this. For now, I'm just creating bones. Whether it exists or not, do this. I want to, I think I already figured this out at one point. Figure out if you have a save file yet. Game mode. Get me to the event graph. What do I want the current? I guess it still exists in the game mode, so let's go with when the switch is created, get game mode, cast it to the game mode blueprint. From here, query the current save game slot name. This is just stuff I will eventually fill out. So eventually I'll let you rename this. Like name different slots for your save files. For now it's just a string that's default set to the string save01. It's all blueprints, Mitsu. Oh. When you cook a build, it has to compile. Yeah, like when you compile it, I think it converts it to C++, and then eventually, I don't know how compiling works. Eventually machine code, I assume. Game mode, current slot. Okay. So we find this slot. If it's a null, then we know there's no save. If it's not a null, we get a string for where the file exists, then there's a save. If the save game exists. Do I want to say play, or do I want it to be like continue and play? Start and continue. Yeah, but it, Wheeze, I think it nativizes by default, does it? Like, for me at least. In my package settings. Oh. Never mind. I don't. Weird. Wonder if I should. You can control alt drag variables. Oh, weird. Let's see. I don't know, I feel like, but then I have to go over here. It's almost faster to just type in get, because I get a long list of variables. I don't know, we'll see. Alright, what do I want this to say, guys? Play? Do I just want it to always say play? I want to always say play, but I want it to do different things. So let's just verify that this is working. Print a string. And continue. Alright, Waze, I'll be careful with it. Thanks, man. Okay, just basically nuked my saves. Let's see what happens here. Oh, that's not good. What did I break? I got the variable game mode instead of this. What is the variable game mode set? Never. Well, now we're declaring it as a variable. So we don't have to keep casting it. Damn it. This didn't show. I will just do this. Do I have a blueprint function library for my project? No, because no. I mean, there's a lot of functions. The reality is the meat either lies in the player, or like all the meat is for the movement and stuff for a pawn is in the player pawn. Everything for figuring out where a grid tile is relative to another grid tile, or if there is something in a grid tile or whatever, is all in the grid manager. Everything for the camera is in a different blueprint, and everything for managing the UI is in the HUD blueprint. And those just, there's no functions that need to share between them, really. And I think if I was working on a project with a large team, this would be terrible, because obviously putting all of your, like, there's just so much in the player pawn, for instance. It would be terrible if somebody wanted to add effects to the player, but they couldn't because I was working on the movement, right? At the end of the day, blueprints are binary files, and if you're working on a large team, it's very important that you make sure you don't have everything in one, like in these massive, like one massive blueprint. It's important to have a lot of little files, but I'm working alone, and this was never going to be a game with a lot of people on it, so there's no harm in just making these massive files. So I haven't needed to, because I don't need a lot of little blueprint files, I don't need to share a lot of functions across a lot of different kinds of blueprints. So it hasn't been a big deal. That's kind of my explanation why I never went down that road. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the appeal, but I mean, literally all of the code is in like 3 blueprints, right? So yeah, this is start, which is good. Thank you, Dreamclad. Okay, so let's say you're like, I'm done with this game, I quit. I need that to not say start anymore. And now it says play. Cool. Well, what we need though is the first time you hit the button. Let me think, is this ever gonna... So on first run... Okay, so on first run, it has to determine if it should play or continue. But after that, the second you hit play, it's always only ever going to be continue. So you don't have to do anything fancy. We can just say as soon as you hit play game. Just looking at all this crap. Set this to true. Set this text to play. And obviously now I have a save file, so I'll delete that. So start. Now it says play. Alright. So that's working. What's next? So what do we want to have happen? Tutor clicked. So this is an event dispatcher because I can't talk to a map directly. And I need to call something on a map. Scream out that the tuner's been clicked, and there's a listener over here in the main menu map. I want to add I want to change a lot of things about this. I want to rename this from tuner clicked to game started. Game start. So we're going to call it game start clicked, and let's call this Can I not give you variables? input parameter. Okay, there we go. New game is a pool. This is going to be based on if your save file exists. Fresh. There we go. Okay, now in the main menu. Start. Come on. Oh yeah, it's right there already. Yeah. What I need to do is rename this function because it's a dumb name. Game start. But more importantly, sorry, I had to recreate it because it was gonna error out. Yes, now I have a bool to work with. Okay. So I'm not worrying about this. So this is what runs when the game starts. We're going to just immediately start playing a sequence. All right. It's not a new game, do this. If it is a new game, actually wait. No matter what, say your view target to this camera. It's going to be my cinematic camera. Let's make a new matinee. Well, sequencer, excuse me, in the main menu. Okay. What do I want to have happen here? so just kind of like have this. Let's open up the other one. So this is the opening scene, right? Hi Neil, what's up, dude? I had an idea for what I want this to be. Crap, I haven't even begun to think about how I want this to work. Oh. Here's a crazy idea. What if I do this next animation entirely in a widget? Specifically here. That'll just be sitting in the widget forever. I want dialogue boxes. I just want to have like a 1 second conversation. Just 2 speech bubbles come up and are talking. It does seem like it should be something that would happen here in the UI. Maybe it's a completely custom widget. Yeah, maybe it's a completely custom widget. Yeah. Then it'll, like, I can spawn it and delete it. It'll get garbage collected, whatever the fuck that means. So, like, but it won't be just ticking in the background forever because it won't be collapsed. It'll just destroy it. Also, this is the sort of thing that should really be 2D. Okay, today's gonna be way experimental, guys. Here's what we're gonna do. I guess just from scratch. It's not that experimental. Don't be a baby. Alright, so new game. Scene. I mean, it's just a fucking. Okay. I need to have the content to make this work. Need a canvas panel to hold everything until I figure out what I'm doing. I'll call this line 1. Canvas panel. You should be aware, Slate and UMG is my least favorite thing. Let's have everything be relative to the center of the screen. Let's have I mean, I should just one off this, but whatever, we have the images already for speech bubbles. God, how are people still paying me? What is open? Well, it is a narrative puzzle game. That's the stuff I haven't been talking about much. Sorry, I'm getting notifications. Got it. Anyway, forgive me. Here we go. Yeah, it was hard enough. I was trying to tell a story without using words, but words help, and whatever. There's a non-zero chance that the vast majority of the dialogue gets cut. Like, it could suck. One of my fears is that if you're playing through, this is one of the things I really do need to test. I'm gonna watch some random people play it when I'm flying down to Raleigh on Wednesday. I'm gonna get some strangers. I'll have some time to just play the game. People who don't play puzzle games, people who are just like gamers, people who work at Epic most likely. Because I want a perspective of just a gamer of how irritating is it if people are like, Quat doesn't talk that much. Rue doesn't shut the fuck up. That's like her deal. That might be irritating. What does she say here? Because I'm worried, like, what if these block... Hey, did I lose some... Oh no, that might have been intentional. Like, does that block things? Is that irritating? Or is that adorable? I don't know. I think if there's too much dialogue and it takes up too much screen space and it gets in the way of solving the puzzle, that would suck. Watching people play through, they tend to play through slowly. Also not sure if I like the dialogue for when you fall. Anyway. If you need a bunch of people for testing, I teach maybe a class this semester. Cool. I don't know, man. I'm not hurting for playtesters right now. I kind of want to like go dark because the problem is when I've kept the game in a test, or I was showing the game to publishers and I took the game to EGX and I've kept the game in a playable state, which is good. But there's sometimes you need to, I'm not at the place yet where I have to stop shaking the Jello. In fact, the Jello needs to be shaken pretty hard. I need to do some major rework. And there's feedback you get from testing that's not always valid. So a really important thing right now would be getting it so that the curtains go down because they block your view, right? As you're playing through the game right now. But I might get rid of the idea of curtains entirely. So fixing that bug is a complete waste of time if I do, right? So there's certain things, there's feedback that you get that's like, I'm not going to do this because there's a chance that this might become not a thing at all, right? And I don't want to end up in that rabbit hole until I'm a little bit. I mean, I've got most of the big questions figured out. There's a handful of like how to do things questions, which are the fun ones, honestly. Once you know what you're doing, figuring out the how is like kind of fun. Like the end of game development is usually the most fun part. But yeah, you don't want to get into that place where you're like fixing bugs that aren't really bugs because the whole system's going away. You understand? And so that's where I am right now. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going dark. I'm still streaming and shit. But the things I do need to test right now are just, is it irritating that the characters talk to you more than is the actual lines they're saying good? You understand? Like more high level things like that, which are things where I can't just send off a build or something. I just need to sit there and watch one person, handful of people play it and see if they laugh and stuff. Because I know the dialogue will be bad for a while. Your first pass is always terrible. You think it's great in your head, and then you realize it's shit. And then you hate it more than you should. Like, it's a cycle. So, right. You know what I need to do, in all seriousness, is I made this intending for it to be the one for when text is small, but sometimes text is big. I know this is a complete tangent, but this is just going to keep holding me back. So let's fix this, actually. I made this... Yeah. I'm sorry. I was working on speech bubbles. I need to fix this fucking speech bubble. This is the one we made on stream yesterday. Top right. I know my right and left. Top. It's called top small. See? But you're not top small. You're top right. Okay, so right now you're 256. Let's pump you up to like... What are the others? That one's obviously massive. What is top left? Yeah, just as big. Fine. Okay. UI just never ends. Yeah, I want that hand-drawn look, but not shitty. god. How do people draw a straight line? I mean, it's gotta have that authentic, not good at drawing look, but it's a little too authentic. Oozing authenticity right here. All right. Hey, Remarch, what's up now? Hey Pyro, what's up, dude? Cool. Brush stabilizers? Oh shit, did I forget to turn on lazy? Let's see. Or are you talking about something else? Yeah, they have that in, I think the concept of a pulled string in here. I think all this stuff turned off as soon as I, like, plugged in my tablet. And I swear it's just not working the same anymore. Which means maybe I should unplug my tablet because I hate it. Actually, yeah, what happens if I unplug you? Oh, it might be unplugged. Huh. I have no idea then. But yeah, Remarch, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that. Just gonna... Wow, I've really devolved here. You know what? You know what? I'm not above this. Fuck it. Later, Neil. saw something on Twitter where a writer was like complaining about, a games writer was complaining about how game developers never hire writers and don't take writing seriously enough, and how he's like, he specifically said, and God help you if you don't write words that fit in their little nerd boxes. And I just fucking died because I spent a whole day making little nerd boxes. And I don't have the money to hire a writer. And also it's my game, so fuck off. But like, that was the most, I've never encountered like a mean writer before in my entire career. They're always super chill. It was bizarre. I should find that thread and link it. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't be mad at people on the internet. It's just like, you know, in theory, you know, there's assholes in every field and in every way. But for some reason, every writer I know is super chill. Like, I've never met like a mad writer. God help you if you don't write things that fit in their little nerd boxes. God. Okay, hold on. Let's get this going here. I mean, there's super definitely negativity in some studios, right? Like, a common one, usually your programmers and your designers get along, but your artists, like at a large studio, I think the typical thing is like the artists don't get along with either the designers or the programmers or both. Just because they tend to have different personality types. Like liberal arts majors versus, you know. I should find the tweet. I would have to find it again. It was a conversation among writers about how people don't take them seriously in game development. We shouldn't find it because that's rude. And I understand there's probably a lot of vexation there. But not every game is about writing. And they were lamenting that so many games have such bad writing and such, and that people don't take writing seriously. And obviously I was paying attention because it's relevant to my interests. So these 3 layers need to merge. I can do this. Good. And that is one thing. And here's something else. Okay. Back down to 3 layers. Alright. And you are now top right speech bubble. You're too mature for the internet? I don't know, man. A lot of mature content on the internet. I find that hard to believe. So let's why is that not working? Oh, it is working. I'm just dumb. Okay. Okay. Bam. Top left corner. Targa. Top right. Top right. Do this one. Let's go to alpha. Let's wipe it away. Whoop. Oh, this is not the ideal brush for this. Whoop. Okay. Let's go to the alpha. You have alpha and you have alpha. file save as. You are the top right speech bubble, but you are the bottom left. Right. So we're gonna have to change a lot of things about this. Most obvious being the image, which doesn't exist in Amelia yet. So let's import those that we just made. Speech bubbles, top right. Set their texture group to be UI. Otherwise they'll be all blurry and shit. Left. Okay. You are now 1024. Whoops. 512. This clipping plane 1024 by 512. Okay. This image 1024 by 512. 1024 by 512. Alright, and you're that's obviously glitched out. So let's look at no tiling followed by both. Nope. This is the wrong thing. Top right speech bubble, bot left. And you should be top right. Okay. Good. 1024 by 512. Okay. Next. From 256 to 512. Sorry. 1024 and no, sorry. You were right. Oh my god. 512. You are 1026. There's no way this just works. It's gonna be things I'm forgetting here. So you exist, you're gonna scale in this direction, that should be fine. You're gonna move up in this direction. Your clipping plane is where? You're here, but your clipping plane is here. Which works, yeah. You're gonna scale up, but you're gonna move over, and your clipping plane is here. Might be a bit, that's fine. This might just work. It's unlikely, but hey. Let's take a look. This one. There. Oh my god, it worked. No, it didn't. I'm stupid. Okay, so we're not actually using this new widget yet. So in the HUD, before I was making a I'm going to rename this from top right small to just top right because they can scale, so why not? Use the top right speech bubble. Change that variable type. It cause all kinds of havoc. We will now fix. So show dialog line. I'm going to call the new function on the new thing. Just rewire everything. There you go. I also used down here. And I changed the variable type, so this will change. So you need to be creating a top right, now top right small, and storing that variable there. Okay, now we should use the new system. Good morning, Michael. Oh, dude. Alright. Didn't work at all. Okay, and I want to be able to test this quicker, so let's go into the lines which are haphazardly slapped here, which if I have to refactor this is going to be a massive pain in the ass, and I regret setting this up the way I did. But so I just kind of slapped the lines into this, which is all the information, and a line is a struct that defines. Here's where I can choose. Ooh, I'm going to change that from small top right to just say top right. I haven't opened up Perforce yet today. Let's try that again. Yes. Okay. So top right. Right. What I was doing is I'm defining the struct here. Or this is an enum. Default top right. Get. Okay. Now what? So I drifted off thinking about how I'm going to make the different shapes because the square is obviously the easiest one. But I think I have some ideas. Yes. So now we can test that faster. Good. Next problem. It wasn't working at all. So we have this clipping panel. The quickest thing to do would be to just add a breakpoint and watch this get built. All right, Marshall, it's good to meet you, dude. Okay, so get that work done. So we are going to the size. That seems right for the top image. This isn't right at all. Yes, it is. Wait. But the top image Same size in X, I hope, right? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so we're scaling it this way, which just clips it automatically in this direction. To only be 153 by 256. Oh, no, 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 no. 153 by your Y should be 512, right? And your X should be 1024 because we changed the sizes. Okay. I mean, it's not quite working, but it's a lot closer. Let's move that. Let's put you in the X for this. Kill that by 2. That looks about right. If I go to spaz level, there. Okay, I like that better now. Oh, nice. Okay. It's a quick change. Now I was having a hard time yesterday making all the scenes look the way I wanted them to without ever using the top right bubble, unless it's something really small. So now I don't have to worry about that. So that's nice. Okay. Next thing. Debating if I should eat before I start this. This will have only been an hour stream. I'll wait a bit. Let's go with. Okay, so I'm going to animate a scene now. So let's go to dialogue. No. Just I'm sorry. Text. Can we just text box? Text box. So. Oh, what the hell? Oh. The user to type in. No, good God. Will be line 2 canvas panel. Oh shoot, sorry, I've been reading. Have you ever made a game using regular coding language? I'm curious if you would compare the process of using blueprints instead. As a software developer, it seems making and maintaining something designed with Visual Coding Engine would not be ideal, but maybe my imagination is just not very good. So, I mean, this depends heavily on your goals. That's such a, like, there is no two-sentence answer to that, right? Obviously, I mean, I've worked on several engines in my career, right? Marvel Heroes Online was made, that one was actually made on Unreal. Before that, I worked in an engine called Big World. My first games back before I was professional, like when I was freelancing in college, and shortly after, I was working in homebrewed engines, which was a nightmare for many reasons. And it really depends on the goals of your studio and your team, because there's hobbyists that make games at home, but for the vast majority of the industry, it's teams of people making games. And obviously, how do I put it? For solo development, Blueprint is amazing because you can get up and going really quickly, right? And yes, maintaining it will be somewhat kludgy, but maintaining any code base is kludgy, especially if you're alone. Like one person maintaining an engine, I would argue one person is not going to be able to maintain an engine, even if it's written in code, just because technology moves, and you're not going to be able to keep up with all of the new hardware that comes out and all that stuff if you're alone. I think the bigger your team gets, like on a meta level, the bigger your team gets, the more likely you are to move into code for so many reasons. It's very difficult to work on a Blueprint project for a large team. For the most obvious is it's very difficult for a large team to manage the vast majority of your code being in a binary asset that only one person can check out at a time, especially when everything from game logic to art is tied up in your blueprints, right? So I think, yeah, you're going to want to be in C++ if you're working with a larger team, obviously. But as far as making and maintaining it, I would say it's a lot easier to make and maintain if you're a solo developer, if you're working in Unreal, because Unreal is going to keep everything up to date. You're counting on Epic. You're giving them a percentage with the hopes that they keep maintaining their engine and they continuously update their engine to work on the newest hardware and update it to work on the newest platforms as time goes on, which they've proven that they will. Which is why I use this engine. I really do love this engine. I think if you're a small team, they've really they've done a great job of making something that's perfect for a small team, specifically an artist or a visually focused person. Like, this engine was basically made for me, personally. Like, I'm pretty sure Tim Sweeney woke up one day and he was like, let's do Gwyneth Solid. And then he made this. Like, I'm pretty sure that was about the thought process here, right? So I obviously love it because I'm a person who works visually and cares a lot about art polish. And I'm not a programmer. I don't have the ability to maintain a code base and keep it up to date and such, right? So yeah, obviously I love it. Obviously EA is going to have, like a different perspective. They probably don't want to give 5% of Battlefield to Epic, their competitor, right? And there's also realities, like they're working on a different level when you're a very large studio. There's realities that anything you write in the Unreal Engine, Epic can see. In the past, it used to be far more egregious. They could option your code. So if you wrote something and it was cool, like technically the pathfinding system in Unreal was not written by anybody at Epic. Like they've loosened on this, but back in the Unreal Engine 2 or 3 days, they had the right to look at your code and like pull it into the engine and give it to everybody, which made their engine very strong and very powerful very quickly, but pissed off a lot of people too, right? Like, it goes in all directions. So if you have more specific questions, I can answer those. But like on a high level, should you write your game in Blueprint versus code? completely depends on the team and your goals and what you're doing. Put on that. So I personally have never used C++, right? Because I'm an animator, which is kind of the point. Unreal gives people who don't have the ability to code the ability to make video games. A lot of these engines do. That's kind of the point of Game Maker and so forth. They're just a lot more powerful. And yes, I've worked in Python, for instance. I've written tools. I used to write tools in C#. I have a background as like somebody who writes tools and stuff. But I wouldn't call myself a software engineer. Not really. I don't like it. I don't enjoy doing it. It's something I did because I had to, right? And because it was, and don't get me wrong, I loved my job. I loved writing specifically. Like, it was fun writing Python tools and coming up with a massive tool chain for these different companies. And like I wrote a tool chain that's still in use at like 6 different, well, no, not anymore. But like Ghost Story games and a couple of the spin-offs from Irrational Games, I'll use my tool chain. Like, it's been around. It's kind of like nested out there, and I'm proud of it. Like, I spent a decade writing a series of scripts that automatically rig characters and such. So I've got a background in writing code, but it's like, it's slightly more writing code than Blueprint. It's Python. Largely working with APIs, largely information that doesn't transfer over from one application to another. Yeah, okay, so my starting point was I started out as a rigger. I would rig characters, and I would write tools specifically using the Maya API for as a tech artist, right? And I worked as a tech artist, and my job would be I'd be hired to at Irrational. I was hired, and I learned Lua for what it's worth, and worked heavily in what do you call it? The Morphine. And also I learned Kismet, and I worked heavily in Unreal in order to... So much of animation isn't dropping keys. So much of it is how things blend and how you transition from state to state and owning those state machines. And so I always was as technical as I needed to be in order to get stuff like that done. Like, I was always the person that did the technical art tasks. I was a tech artist, right? So things like figuring out why your ragdoll looks like ass and fixing it, writing tools for people, coming up with ways to streamline different processes. Like, when I first got to Irrational, to export a certain scene into the game, just the process of exporting it and importing it into the game took that animator over an hour. I got it down to like a button click. That's how, and that's important, right? And so to do that, I just, it takes a certain amount of being curious about whatever the new tech is, always trying to keep up to date on whatever the new tech is, and sometimes you have to learn things like Max scripts, God help you, or just getting it deep into the guts of the API of different systems. So because I've been doing this forever, Blueprint came kind of naturally to me. Like, of all the bullshit scripting languages I've ever had to learn, Blueprint is by far the best. It was fun to make tools to a point, but you wouldn't do it unless you got paid well enough. Well, I mean, I think the best way to write tools is to be the person who uses the tools, is the other side of it, right? Like, I love writing animation tools and workflow tools and pipeline tools for animators and artists. And because I'm good at it, and I'm good at it because I know exactly what the problem is, and I have the experience of being the person that is the end user. And if you are the end user, it's a lot easier to write the tools, and it's a lot you just don't fall down those stupid rabbit holes that other people do. You don't impose like some kind of vision that ends up being incorrect. And so I've written, like, I think a handful of times I wrote an audio tool that managed someone's Excel spreadsheet. That was like a standalone Python thing I did, and I wrote, what the fuck did I write in C# back in the day? I had to learn, well, I didn't have to. I keep saying I had to. Generally, I go to a studio and I look at what needs, I figure out what I think needs to be done and I do it, and that is a lot easier if you're the end user. So the point at which I lose interest in writing tools is the point at which I'm writing tools for something I don't do. It's not a matter of being paid well enough. You'll never be paid well enough. Time is priceless. But if you love what you do, it's all good. And yeah, I never learned C++ because I didn't have to. And every time I've... the act of installing Visual Studio, that's actually about where I always hit the hurdle. I try to install Visual Studio. This is like the handful of times I've been intellectually curious and tried to do it. I usually got to the point of installing Visual Studio, and then opening it, and then closing it, usually. I don't think I've ever compiled anything in Visual Studio. I know in college I did technically write C++ briefly, but I had a command line and compiler for that. My friend like set me up. He was like, you need to do this. And I was like, do I? Turned out, no, I don't. That's how that story ended. Anyway. I go too far. Yeah, no problem, Virus. Thanks for hanging out, man. Alright, so... how do I do stuff with this? Timeline. What's I missing? Doing game dev as a hobby and trying to do what I can for my first big project. Nice. Have you shipped games as a hobby, Pyrus? Thanks for the cheer, by the way. I must have missed it earlier. I've not had a lot of experience shipping games, but I've heard lots of stories about what happens. So I've been trying to internalize as best as I can advice about that. Alright. Yeah, you're gonna get wildly different advice. I said this in my, like, I gave a talk recently at Console, and I'll tweet it out when it's, like, edited or whatever, because I want to do a pass on it, but, I think the most important thing is to keep in mind a lot of the people that give advice are, like, it's a turbulent industry. We've all been through a certain amount of shit. So everybody's, I don't want to say jaded, but, like, everybody wants to shield you from the things that they went through that were wrong. And also, everybody is usually extremely opinionated. A lot of the people in the games industry could be making significantly more money if they just weren't in this industry. A lot of the people, specifically in the indie space, could easily make significantly more money, but they don't. And so you don't take the kind of risks we take if you don't believe what you do. So people tend to be extremely passionate when they give advice. It's just something to keep in mind. I don't think you'll have any trouble finding a crap ton of advice. Lord knows I never did. Well, alright, so I think the rule of thumb is you need to have enough time to read something twice. I'm just gonna keep pulling this out. Oops, wrong button. Some talks I listened to twice and not even realized it. There are a lot out there. I've got a mental roadmap, no deadline, no budget, and a Trello with tasks. Man, that's the dream. Every now and then in my life I get that. It's just like, you wake up every day and you make a game and you don't care about anything other than making the best game for some brief period of time at least. Because there's no, like, fucking demo build. That's when the magic happens sometimes. Well, the magic happens all the time. That's when it's the most fun. Some of the craziest ideas come from like the last minute. Oh god, how are we gonna do this? So there's a lot of ways to find the magic. Why are you not collapsing? Curious. Oh, because you're not set to collapse, dumbass. Oops. Honestly, I'm giddy at the potential the game can be. The concept is great, and it's something I want to play so bad. Cool, Pyros. What kind of game is that? Give me a hint. What kind of genre? What does TCG stand for? I know first person shooter, but I'm not familiar with TCG. Trading card game. Oh. Got it. Okay, so your dream project, your first project is going to be a multiplayer game? I mean, it's not your first project. So, I feel you. Here's the risk. Specifically early on, you can't really get the feel of a multiplayer game as one person. Right? It's kind of the point of a multiplayer game. It's extremely difficult for one person to work on a multiplayer game alone. So my caution to you would be, and it's also extremely difficult to bring other people onto the project if they're not completely in tune with your vision yet and that sort of thing. So I think you're going to have a problem there. Either you need to find someone to collaborate with early, who's totally in tune with your vision, and also you have to be willing to collaborate with them, because that's how things work. It can't be like you've got this perfect game in your head. Why doesn't everybody want to congeal on my vision? That's not how development works. So basically you have to find a partner to work with, somebody else who's similar goals and similar ideas to you that you can bounce ideas off of. I would recommend that very strongly, because I feel that you're not going to be able to find the fun with a multiplayer game as a solo dev. it's just, no matter how perfect your testing is, the fact that you can't just, like, I don't say it can't be done. Maybe it can be done. But it is extremely difficult to work on a multiplayer game as one person. That's my only caution. Obviously, there's other caution too. I think a lot of people would tell you not to do it. Because multiplayer games are very hard. But technology moves quickly if you're using a licensed engine specifically. I mean, Unreal handles a lot of the replication. I don't know how much goes into that. Yeah. And there's nothing saying you can't start alone, kind of get a prototype that sells your basic premise and ideas. Make it feel good to fight like a mannequin kind of deal. And then get funding later. That's not the worst idea. A lot of people kind of go down that road. You have people willing to play test. Yeah. Maybe you can make it work. I'm just pointing out you are choosing a very difficult starting point. And you've got a fleshed out prototype. Okay. Let's try this out. I need pictures. Yeah, listen to Kaji Cat. Start with a... Start single player and then move it to multiplayer, which will totally change your numbers and everything. But will help you... If you can... well, I mean, a lot of how I think about shooters too is that, because my experience, I usually worry a lot about the feel of the guns and the feel of moving around and the feel of shooting things. If there's a trading card element, there might be more tactical stuff or strategy here that I'm not thinking about. But in general, you can get a lot of the feel of making a gun feel good and feel like how long you should shoot. You can get a lot of that started just shooting like a scarecrow. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to do it because the reality is, I think there's a fear of. I mean, I wouldn't do it for my first game. Personally, I wouldn't recommend doing multiplayer for your first game, but I will point out that indies in general are afraid of pursuing specifically multiplayer shooters. Do I want to say that? Let me think this through. I mean, you have some. I think there's at least before talking to people I know, there would be a large fear of trying to run up against Call of Duty. There's this kind of defeatism when you think about multiplayer shooters where you're like, oh, but the games that are going to win are the ones with the massive art budgets, and AAA has totally locked this down. And there's like a lot of that sort of rhetoric around multiplayer shooters, which is that there's this belief that you need to have a crap ton of money and compete with Battlefield and Call of Duty in order to make it in the shooter space, and I completely disagree. I think Tripwire is a great example. I think it's totally possible to compete without necessarily having the kind of art budget. I think this fear is largely unfounded. And I don't know if that fear is still around or if it's just something something that's mostly in my friend group, because we all live in our bubbles. It's not worth thinking about the COD crowd. They're just as logged into their games as the MMO players. I disagree. And I think, like, mostly because a lot of that crowd, people who play competitive games generally play them with other people, and when those other people aren't around, they need something to play. So having the lighter game that you kind of drop into, that's like your B game, is like when I played League of Legends, I was extremely competitive. I would only play if I could play with my group, and I needed like a lighter games that I would play when nobody was around, or if I wanted to do some kind of multiplayer, but not, I didn't want to be like part of the ranking system, or like I just wanted to decompress from League of Legends. So there's a lot of that. Don't get me wrong, I don't think you're gonna like make the, I wouldn't try to make the Call of Duty killer, right? But I do think that people who play COD play other games. Except for COD bros. There's no hope for them. They're just dumb. COD bros are real. When they're not playing COD, they play FIFA. Experiment with different game modes. Paris, you're biting off a very large project here. I think you know that, though. A multi-mode, like a competitive first-person shooter mashed up somehow with a card game. I do think it's very important to figure out what that mechanic is and why it's interesting. And I don't think you need to make it multiplayer yet to figure that out. Because if you can find something compelling and interesting there that's different from everybody else and is clearly fun and sticky, you can solve the rest with money. Most things can be solved with money if you have a good enough idea. And that, I think, is the thing that makes you unique. That's the thing that has the potential to be an interesting idea. Okay. But again, take whatever advice you want. Listen to every talk twice. Do whatever it is you feel. Right. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is this is a hobby project. It's difficult to say. Like, some of the most... Trying something massive and failing and learning a lot is worth a ton. I don't want to tell you you're going to fail. But this is extremely ambitious, obviously, for one person to do in the side of the hobby, right? So I don't want to discourage you from that. If you're serious about making a competitive shooter, if you really want this to succeed, if you feel like failure is not an option, I would scope down to just figuring out the core mechanic that is this shooting trading card thing. Proving that it's fun in a very tight, focused prototype where you're shooting a scarecrow, and then go from there. Start with what makes you unique, right? Because if you can get that to be interesting, if you have the potential to get funding and to get help, because the reality is you're not going to make this multiplayer shooter thing. If you start it now and you spend 5-6 years making it, you're going to miss the boat, right? Like there's, and I don't want to scare you, but it's real, right? The tech you're working in now won't exist in a couple of years. We'll be using different everything, right? And it takes a long time to do these things. So proving out what's fun and then getting funding and getting it done for a shooter in such a competitive and fast-moving market, I would argue is a good idea. The only time you should work on a game that is going to take a long time and you're cool with it and you're willing to like do it in as a hobby and stuff is when you have something that's not tied to current events, something that's timeless, something that's where you don't have the chance to miss a boat. The Witness is the best example. Use your own tech. Don't make something that's nobody else is thinking about making. Make something where you won't get like that could have released 10 years later and it still would have been fine, right? Again, I don't want to discourage you. I don't want to shit in your Cheerios, man. I would just say, like, if I was serious about it, I would start with the core mechanic that's interesting, that's different and unique with your game. Personally, if it was me. What do I know? Just been doing it for a decade. But, yeah. Well, yeah. Everything exists in a time, right? Like, everything we do, things that are cool now won't be cool in a couple years. Technology moves forward. That's reality. Everybody wants a battle royale right now. In 5 years, nobody's gonna want any more fucking battle royales. If you spend 6 years making a battle royale, you're fucked, right? There's things that are extremely not timeless like that. There's things that are capitalizing on IP or current events that are super hot right now. Obviously, you don't want to do that and take a long time with your game. Like, there's obvious games that can't take a long time. But there's things that aren't obvious that you don't realize are kind of couched in the now. And we don't know what they are. Like, maybe all games are VR in the future. Like, I don't know, right? I've been working on a multiplayer first-person shooter for 6 years. I plan to spend 2 years on it at the start. Yeah. Every time you extended it, was there a good reason? Did you feel like you were making a better game because of it? And that, like, do you regret it? Or do you wish you'd scoped it down? Obviously, at the time when you decided to take longer, it was because either you widely had no idea how long things would take, or you allowed the scope to creep. Yeah, that would definitely be my advice, Pyros. Be very wary. If you're going to take a while doing this, be very wary about... Yeah, you got it. Nothing, don't catch anything in the now. Are you rolling your own tech for this? I couldn't tell from the screenshots. That's good. If you're having a good time, who gives a shit? Hoendo. Using Unity. The game concept will hit a currently untouched niche. As long as I put the right polish on it, it should be fine. Catch a cat. I don't know why you said Lord Save You. Is that from the meta like idea in general, or is that just about the remark on the Unity engine? I think Unity is not the worst way to go. I think it'll be updated as time goes on. Be careful about The day you decide to stop taking updates from Unity, because that's the day when you better be pretty close to ship. Especially because I don't think you can get the code base in Unity. Whatever, none of this matters. Have fun. Make a cool little prototype. Hope it explodes. That's the way I would do it. I would open my mind to the idea that this is make a kernel of fun and show it off and get people excited about it and build some hype. And then from that get money and then let it snowball into a bigger project that gets funded and picked up. I honestly think as a solo dev working on a multiplayer game, in the long run, maybe it's ignorance or something, but I've worked on multiplayer games and I can't imagine doing it as a solo dev. Like, I just can't. There's just something about being able to, every time you need to test something, yeah, of course you can like technically open up 2 clients in your machine, but there's something about being able to play against somebody, being able to show something to somebody else that I just can't imagine not having that on a multiplayer game. Maybe it's been done. But I would have funding be my end goal personally. My personal project is a bunch of roadblocks for the community. I do believe in it as an engine. A lot of people love it. I feel bad, I've been preaching. Alright. Why don't you show up? Oh, it's not. What is your deal? Can you suggest? Oh, you're here. What the fuck? That was a bug. Don't judge me for this writing, it's shit. Let's see here. I am one of those developers the writers were complaining about. Okay. Alright, so we got this, whatever this is. Let's set, let's see, collapsed by default. Everything. That's a terrible name. Name and widget everything. Global canvas. Figure out how I want this to animate. So I just had an idea. So I get distracted right now though. Start opening scene. Or start new game scene. All you do is play this animation. What am I doing right now? Also, none of you need to be variables. But you need to be a variable. And you can say be visible. Delay for 18 seconds. Let's give it a little bit of lead time there. But yeah, delay for like 19 seconds. And then destroy the entire widget. Remove. You can't destroy a widget. You can remove it from the parent and it will magically go away. I hate this. But okay. So let's do this. Widget. Create a widget, which is this opening scene widget. New game scene. Add to, screen. Viewport, add to viewport. Right. Call start new game. Delay for like 17 seconds. And then go do the rest of this shit. Alright, I have no idea if any of this is gonna work. So this will be fun. Gonna delete my save. And let's see what we get. Nope. Didn't work at all. Bummer. Okay, so I'm passing the wrong thing here. If the save file exists, then it is not a new game. That'll be the problem. Problem 1. Passed the wrong bool. Now we're gonna need this breakpoint. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so that's the beginning of something. The timing's terrible, the writing's gonna be redone, but at least I know what it'll do. It'll be something like that. How far along with the game do you think you are? It depends. If I had to wrap it up, I could do it in 6 months. Like, I'm happy with the levels, I'm happy with where things are. I have a couple of big questions still. Most of the big questions are art questions now. Art, UI, and menu questions. A lot of that's missing. A lot of polish is missing. I would like to spend more time in polish. I don't know exactly what I want to launch. I can. Somebody said once recently, art is like a gas that'll take up all available resources and time, which is true. So basically, I'll be done with the game about 2 months after I should be. And defining where I should be done with it is probably the thing I should do soon. But I can get it to a place where I'm happy with it within 6 months. There's things like, there's a couple of tech problems, like the options screen. That's not a big deal. A lot of the glitches have been worked out. I know what the game is. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I'd say I'm solidly into production at this point. I'm not in pre-pro. Look at my list. So yeah, the big questions are figuring out what the stage is and unlocking the tech for unlocking the stages when you unlock them. How to make that look good and feel good is this tech art problem. It's both. Figuring out the look of the game, especially in certain areas, how to make that look polished is a kind of tech art problem. All the transitions and the art moving between them has to happen, and how that'll work is both a tech and an art problem. The writing needs a pass. I need to do a pass on I do need to play through. I have not played through the main stage stuff. I need to do that. In general, we think the visuals, as far as the kind of ropes that go through the world. I hate this smoke and the fog machine and just the look of that. So the look of this needs work. It's a lot of art shit. Also, I need to playtest the new UI. I flaked on doing that real hard. And I need to playtest these dialogue. See if people like having this much dialogue or not. I don't know. I'm solidly in pre-pro. Or in production. I want to release something polished on day one. I don't want to do like early access or something like that. I'll be working on it after release, but that'll most likely be DLC in case it does well, and the sequel, because this leads right into what I want to do for the next game. So the next game is going to also be a grid-based puzzle game, but be very, very different. And the end of this game kind of dovetails into that. So I'll be working, just not on this. Like, I want to finish this. I'm old school. I like to finish a game, ship it, start the next game. It's my shit. Yeah, the next game's gonna use the same characters. Put a pin in that, Hoendo. I'm not entirely sure. The music will change. I think the next game ends in a bit of a twist. Won't be jazz. Well, maybe it'll be jazz. We'll see. Music related though, I don't know. I can't help it. Every game I've ever, like, all the games I've worked on always have musical elements to them, and I've always loved it. Right? Like, The Flame and the Flood was very much about Chuck Reagan's soundtrack. Going down the river and listening to his music. And, like, when I worked on Bioshock Infinite, my role for the DLC was the Paris scene, where, like, all the musical tracks drop in, and syncing everything up to that. That was a huge part of what I did in that project. So yeah, I mean, I can't help it. I just love it. It'll be music related, even if I don't plan it. Like this was cubes, and then they became instruments. I don't know why this happens. It happens every time. I like working with musicians. They're usually cool. Alright, it's noon, and I skipped breakfast, so I'm gonna take off early. I'm gonna call it a 2.5 hour stream. I know this is like, I'm saying the streams are getting shorter and shorter. I'd say I'm gonna come back later, but I have to head out at like 1:30. I have an appointment at 2, so there's a very small chance I'll stream later tonight, but most likely not. Because I'm hella lazy. And I get more done when I'm not streaming. And I should probably get stuff done because I'm flying out this week. But thanks for hanging out, everybody. I hope you had fun or got shit done or whatever it is you want to do. Either way. Yeah, catch a cat. Good luck with your... Good luck. I always... it's difficult, right? Because you don't want to be preachy, you don't want to tell people what they already know, but you want to caution people and you want to manage expectations, but you don't want to stomp on people's dreams. I feel weird anytime I give advice, but I'm glad it was helpful. Later, Polydolphin. Thanks for swinging by, man.